Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Opinion Hours, movie podcast. We're two, would you call us friends?
Yeah, maybe.
How about associates? Two associates get together and talk about the movies we watch. I'm Cody.
And I'm Tyler.
And Tyler, what did we watch today?
We watched Isle of Dogs, the newest Wes Anderson stop-motion claymation film.
You know what I liked about how you said that?
What do you like about how I said that?
Because every time I say I love dogs, everyone thinks I'm saying I love dogs. Like, I love Lucy, but I love dogs. But when you said it, I knew exactly you're talking about an island filled with canines. That's what I liked about that.
That's good. That's good. That's what I was going for. Before it? Okay.
That was a cough.
It was.
You made it look like it was a sneeze. You paused and you made me stop in my tracks for a cough.
I know, it made you jump. Much like the part in the Smasher Grinder furnace thing.
There was that one part where the sound
jumped.
was so loud. Granted, that theater's speakers were really good.
They were. So, speaking of the theater, where did we go see this movie, Cody?
We went to Alamo Drafthouse.
How would you compare the Alamo Drafthouse to the other theaters we've gone? I know it's a very popular indie theater. People like that a lot. So
yeah. I mean, the food was good. We got popcorn with, real butter on it. Clarified butter, which is a different thing than what I thought it was. It's pretentious butter. It was delicious. The seats were fine. I feel like the seats could have been better. But I think we're spoiled because there's that theater by me that has the Screenland has the couches that we like to sit on.
The couches are very nice. They let you spread out.
Couches. But hey, the sound in that theater was on point.
It was on point.
I was jumping out of my seat. It was so good.
You were.
So, we watched Isle of Dogs today. And I think it's your turn. Tell me, give me your 30 seconds or less plot summary. Ready, set, go.
Alright, so the Island of Dogs is based in Japan, the Japanese archipelago, right? It's in the city of Megasaki.
Oh my goodness.
Canine populations all-time high, right? So this dog flu, kind of like swine flu or bird flu, I think is what they're going for here.
Sure.
Outbreak. Every single dog has this flu. So now they're worried, is it going to pass over to humans? That's a big worry. Might kill people. So the mayor, ancient family this mayor is from,
Kobayashi.
also anciently hates dogs and loves cats.
Right.
So he's like, I got an idea. Ancient family hate of dogs, dog problem in the city. I'm going to deport all the dogs to Trash Island, an island made out of Japanese trash.
Japanese trash.
Specifically
There's no
Japanese.
American trash allowed.
Not a single pound of American trash.
Not even if your trash has a visa are you allowed.
Nope.
Very strict terms.
So they deport all the dogs, but he deported his distant nephew's dog. Mistake. Because then his distant nephew went to save his dog. Spots.
Alright. So, that's Isle of Dogs. I just want to point out, I give you a lot more time than you gave me last week. I felt like I got 15 seconds, and I gave you a solid 78 seconds.
You got 30 seconds, and then you kept going. You do not have a timer. You're not very professional.
I want to know exactly how long that was. And if it was 78 seconds, I feel like you owe me dinner. Maybe. Alright. Well, I think that was a good summary. Let me tell you my first impressions of the movie.
Alright, give them to me.
I thought it was very well done. I thought it was Wes Anderson about it at the top of his game. Charming, funny, without sacrificing a story or the beautiful cinematography he's known for. I would say a lot of people would enjoy it. I would say definitely check it out. Regardless of if you're a big fan of animation, if you have seen a lot of Wes Anderson stuff, I think it's a great one to start on. It's my thoughts. What about you?
I liked it a lot. I am traditionally not a huge fan of indie movies of any kind or stop-motion movies of any kind. But I did enjoy this one. I thought it was very funny. And well done. And you mentioned to me as they were playing this reel kind of explaining Wes Anderson and going through his movies and showing quotes and stuff like that from his life. You told me about how his cinematography is so well known because he tries to frame every shot like it's a painting. And I tried to pay attention for that, and I definitely noticed that in this movie, where everything what could have been like, yeah, I'd buy a painting of that and hang it in my house. It looks kind of cool. So I really liked it. I think it definitely makes me want to go back and watch his other films.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I've ever seen any of his other films. I know I really wanted to see the Grand Budapest Hotel when it was coming out, but I never got the chance to.
Yeah.
And now I think I'm going to go back and make the time to go see that.
Awesome. So you would recommend it?
I would absolutely recommend this movie. As the action movie, general public voice of this two-man podcast, I would definitely recommend it to anybody. It's very funny, if nothing else.
Yeah. Awesome. I would agree. So now I've been really, ever since the movie started, I was excited to talk about it. I think there's a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into some of the finer plot points.
No, wait, let me stop you right there. Are we about to jump on the spoiler train right now?
I mean, I think there's a very high chance of spoilers coming up.
All right. Ready? Choo-choo. Hopping on the spoiler train. Pulling out of beginning of the podcast station, headed for Spoiler Town, USA.
Spoiler Town, USA.
Buckle up,
population,
everybody.
The worst people ever.
Yep. Buckle up.
Buckle up. Do you buckle up on a train?
I don't know.
I've
you
never
buckle
ridden
up
a
on
train.
this train because it's shooting out of that station real fast.
All right. Okay. Let's get into it. What did you really like about it? What were some of your favorite things? I know you said you liked the humor.
I did.
Yeah. What else?
I actually liked how smooth the animation was compared to other stop motion films I'd seen.
Mm-hmm.
Which generally is what my main complaint is, that it's like they don't put enough frames in between motions so your brain can fill it in, so it just looks real jerky.
Oh yeah.
But this one, I remember seeing a video come up on TV or YouTube or something, kind of talking about the movie and how this is the longest stop motion or claymation film ever made, and how many hundreds of people they had and how many different animators they had for specific things. Like there were, for comedic moments, there was a group of animators that were really good at that, and for tense moments there was people who were really, really good at doing that, and how they all worked together to make it seem real fluid. And honestly, it looked almost like someone just 3D rendered the whole thing, and then you see pictures of them actually taking the clay models and moving them, and it's very impressive in my opinion.
Yeah. I would agree. I thought that was really cool. See, that was something that interested me because the first Wes Anderson film I had seen was Fantastic Mr. Fox, and it's very much in the same style, and it really threw me. I didn't know what to think of it at first, partly because of the way it was animated, because all the animals have all the real hair and fur on them. And so that, in every frame, as you move, you see the fur moving little bits at a time. And that always threw me. And between that and the way that he frames his shots in those portrait styles, I never quite knew what to think of it. When I first saw Fantastic Mr. Fox, I really did. I came to enjoy that movie a lot. I ended up seeing it a couple times. But I think after having seen some of his other movies, I was fully on board for this one. And it didn't throw me at all, and I was able to appreciate a little bit more how it was done. But I definitely enjoyed that. I also really like the humor. I thought they nailed just about every joke. I thought they really nailed. I enjoyed the story, and I think more than anything, I thought it was really cool how they sort of highlighted the Japanese culture from the music, which I thought was really impressive in parts. And they've got the scene of the guy making the sushi, which was really awesome to see animated so beautifully.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, there were so many things about the culture I thought that they touched on and brought into the film. I mean, the attention to detail. I don't know, like there was the one moment where they showed the news anchor, and you could see that he was wearing slippers. He's wearing a full suit, he's a news anchor, but then he had slippers on, which I think is such a Japanese thing, like sandals and slippers and things. But there were so many moments like that. Wes Anderson is so meticulous and so detail-oriented, and I thought it came out beautifully in this film.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I was talking about the animation. I think that scene where he made the sushi is probably the best example of that. Because I've tried to make sushi before. Nearly impossible if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like just cut this out. I want to go to sleep watching this video every day of the rest of my life, because it was like the most soothing thing to watch I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. I mean, they had so many things about the culture. They had paintings. They had like the wood carvings of the waves, but with dogs in them, and yeah, it was cool. And they talk about haikus and everything. It was really neat to see. Before the film too, they had mentioned Wes Anderson talked about how his biggest inspirations were Kurosawa, who's the director of Seven Samurai, and then Hayao Miyazaki, who has directed films like Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
So it was. I've never seen a Kurosawa film, but I've seen all of Miyazaki's films. So it was interesting to see. I don't know what I knew about the culture through his films and some of the similarities, but
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely very interesting. I like how they, every time there's stuff happening on screens in the movie, so that was actually animated. Everything around it was stop motion, but they would just animate that. And I like the style they went with was the same, like, Japanese watercolor look to it. Like the faces and the way that they were posed and everything had that same look to it. I thought that was a cool little touch.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because it kind of threw me and I wasn't sure what to make of it. I wasn't sure if there was some additional artistic reason for it because it almost distracted me. Because every time that screen popped up, I was like, oh, over here there's a stop motion, then over here there's the animation. I didn't know quite what to make of it. So it was a little bit distracting for me. I don't think it was necessarily bad, but do you have any other thoughts on that?
I thought it looked nice. I mean, I thought it was interesting that they differentiated it because I think if they hadn't, it would have just looked like a window, and like they would have just had a cutout in the set and another smaller set inside of that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure part of it was that would have been incredibly hard to animate, and it simplified it a lot for him. But I also think it looked real nice and kind of differentiated, so you would know when it was filling the whole screen whether or not you were looking at a TV screen or not when they were showing that stuff. So
yeah, that's a good point. It is kind of ambitious to do a stop motion and have a screen going on at the same time.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see how they did the effect, if they had to green screen it in the animation or if they had the animation going frame by frame with the...
That would be interesting, because I wouldn't be surprised either way, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. Guess I'll have to buy the DVD. Or Blu-ray. Do people buy Blu-rays now? Or 4K? What's the difference?
4K is a lot more.
But like you have to buy a 4K disc, right?
Yeah.
Like you said.
And you have to buy a 4K TV and a 4K Blu-ray player.
Oh. That's so much.
We have a movie podcast and you don't have a 4K TV?
Okay.
We're making millions on this podcast.
That's
here.
True, and I haven't even sprung for. It all goes to my gambling addiction. No, you know that I have a projector.
You do have a projector,
and a 4K projector would be so much money.
Yep, a lot.
It would be several dollars.
Probably $5 whole.
At least.
At least.
Okay, let's. How about problems with the film, or let's say another way to phrase that. What would you have done differently, or what would you have liked to see changed about the movie? And if you don't have one, I was gonna say I have one, but I just forgot what it was.
I was gonna say you should go first because I have to think about it.
All right. Let me see if I can remember it. One problem I had with the film, I thought all in all it was pretty well written. It's in that Wes Anderson style. It was. So much of the film was so charming. It was very whimsical. The way they do fights where whenever there's a fight, it's this big, like, cloud of smoke. And it's such, like, something you see like a Tom and Jerry cartoon or, like, Looney Tunes, like a big scuffle and then there's a big cloud and things popping out of it. And it was really cool to see how they did that with animation. What was I saying? I was saying my problem with it. Why did I bring that up?
I don't know.
Okay, my one problem with the film... Yeah, it was really whimsical. I enjoyed it. I had one issue with the writing. A lot of times it breaks the fourth wall, which I thought it executed very well.
Yeah.
But there was just one spot where I think the story could have been done a little bit better. And this is a big spoiler, but you find out that... Oh, what's the name of the dog with the black nose?
The black nose?
Yeah.
Chief.
So, you find out that Chief is Spot's... brother.
Yeah.
Which they kind of, I think they led up to it pretty well. Like, Chief was all dirty, he gets cleaned up, and you're like, oh, he's the same breed and everything. So I think you kind of knew it was happening. But then there's the moment where they, like, officially reveal it. And it's just like, hey, I know you, we're long lost brothers. And it just seemed to me like that could have been better written. They could have done another flashback. They could have not necessarily gone out and said it, but inferred it in another way. That was one moment where I was like, well, you didn't really break the fourth wall. You just kind of threw it out there, and I thought it could have been a little bit better. Other than that, I thought the story went pretty smoothly. I thought it was really well told. That was just one moment in particular that just kind of, I don't know, I thought should have been done a little bit better.
Yeah, I do wonder, because there was some stuff in the film that I wondered if the movie would have been like 4 hours long if everything that had been written in this original script had been done, and they just had to kind of shave a lot of that stuff out. Like Nutmeg was what I was going to bring up, where I felt Nutmeg? Like that was very, they had that one scene where they saw her and then they met Chief and Nutmeg, and they talked, and then at the very end they're together again, and it's like, it seems like the original intent was for them to have a lot more together.
Yeah, Nutmeg kind of just pops up. She's there. And then, yeah, you're right. She's just kind of just there at the end. And it makes sense because they sort of share that bond between owners, right? Her owner has a crush on his owner.
Yeah, his new owner.
His new owner. And so it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense why they got brought back together, but why wasn't there more story with that?
Well, it's just like little comments like when Rex comments, how does she keep her fur so clean? There's no soap here. And or no shampoo here, I think is what he said. But, very important, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's just little stuff like that where I think the original intent might have been to have a lot more with her. Yeah. And then they were like, look, this is already the longest stop-motion movie ever made. Yeah. We really gotta, start snipping stuff out of this movie because we just don't have the time.
Yeah, that's the thing about that stop-motion is it's so heavily... I mean, you have the script. Yes, you got all the voice acting. It's so heavily storyboarded, and especially if you're talking about Wes Anderson, he's one of those directors where he knows every shot what it's going to be. He has a specific vision for it. They know all the details for it. And I think that really comes out in a stop motion feature because you set every single frame. You control everything in the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that was part of the problem where there may have been this whole flashback scene and they finally were just like, we can't do another flashback. Just have Spots remember him.
Yeah. I do think the film was the right length. I think if it had gone much longer, it would have lost steam.
Yeah.
So I think they paced the story very well.
I thought it had weird pacing as I was sitting there thinking, you're talking about what did I have problems with. It seemed like there was some stuff that got drawn out quite a bit, and then once stuff started happening, it really snowballed on itself and started going really fast. And stuff that I thought would be a through line of the whole movie happened in like the last 15 minutes of the movie. Which, while you're watching it, that I didn't notice that really. It was just kind of like, oh man, stuff's... And it snowballs in just the right way that it feels like, oh, everything's kicking off, so everything's happening faster.
Yeah.
But there were some things where I was like, the pacing could have been done a little differently, but I don't know how I would have done it better. I mean...
Yeah.
I think you nailed it as well as you really could on a movie this long in this style about dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess one other issue with the story might be the uncle-nephew storyline.
The distant uncle?
The distant uncle, which was funny. But in the beginning, they're like, oh, you realize, Atari is Mayor Kobayashi's nephew, distant nephew, and because his parents died in an accident, then he kind of gets taken in there. But then there's no really exploration of that relationship until the very end, when there's sort of Kobayashi has that moment where he's like, oh, you know what? Like, I've made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. But there's like a whistling, which I think was Atari's whistle to his dog. It never clicked in my mind of why that made him realize that he had been mistreating the dogs. There was definitely something there where I think there could have been a little more exposition between what was their relationship like.
Yeah, which... Now, This is the first Wes Anderson movie. I think it's the first one I've seen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I've sat down and watched the whole way through.
Sure.
There's usually several storylines kind of going at the same time. Not like Tarantino level, but isn't there usually like a bunch of stuff happening all at once? And it's more like, a lot of his movies are more like a slice of life thing where they just show all this kind of stuff happening and less of a story.
Maybe. I mean, Grand Budapest, I think, has maybe, you could maybe say 2 or 3 connected storylines. Like
Yeah,
Rushmore, for example, I think, and I believe that's his first film, that's one story.
Well, Grand Budapest is the one I'm most familiar with, so that's the one I'm basing this off of.
Yeah.
So that's why I wonder if maybe stuff like his relationship, like all these things were meant to be flashbacks or side stories, and it just ended up being cut from the film.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because at the end of the movie, it says Wes Anderson wrote the screenplay, but there were, I think, Jason Schwartzman, Wes Anderson. There were 4 people, I think, in total that wrote the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if maybe between the 4 of them, there were parts that maybe some of them had pitched that kind of got left out in the grand scheme. But
yeah, where I could definitely see where the nephew-uncle storyline could have been fleshed out more, but it was kind of relegated more to, it's a joke that they call him his distant uncle, and it's just the way that makes him related to him, so that when Jupiter tells the ancient story of the Kobayashi family, they're like, okay, so he's part of the Kobayashi family, so he's the young samurai that betrays the Kobayashi family. And so, like, that's how they were related, and that's how he was part of the family.
Yeah. I mean, aside from those couple qualms I had with it, wow. I thought it was just so well done. Can we talk about the music for a minute?
Yeah.
Tell me what your thoughts are on the music.
I actually really liked it. I usually don't like that kind of music. Like, I wouldn't sit down and listen to that music, but I thought it complemented what was happening on screen perfectly.
What do you mean, like, that type of music?
Just the more kind of light, I don't really know the genre it would be. You would know more than I would about specifically what kind of music.
It seemed to me, I could think of maybe 3 main themes. The beginning and end had the drumming themes.
That was pretty cool.
It was really cool to see them animate that Japanese style of drumming. And it was awesome to hear, especially with the sound setup they had in that theater. And then there's like those 1 or 2 like indie, like kind of slow indie songs.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. Specifically the one where they're kind of on their journey.
Right.
The one from the trailer.
Like the main theme.
I wouldn't sit down and listen to that, and I was kind of like, I didn't really like it in the trailer, but having it happen, I barely noticed it. It just melded with the movie so perfectly.
Yeah.
That it just complemented it, and I didn't even notice it. It just became like kind of the background noise to support everything else happening.
Yeah. I think Wes Anderson is so meticulous, and it comes together in so many different ways. He's able to pull off a really unique and quirky sense of humor, very beautifully shot. It's like this whimsy throughout the whole thing, and that music just complements it perfectly. And it brings humor to some moments, it brings a sense of adventure to others, and even the drums at the beginning are kind of epic. And the beginning and the ending have those drums, and I think it really tells you that the story's building, and it builds the emotion in it. And I think it's cool that he's able to have those different types of music all kind of seamlessly weave different parts of the story together.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that he loves doing this. I think it comes through really clearly in the movie that Wes Anderson really loves it. And before the movie, I was asking you, because you're a huge Wes Anderson fan, why do all these? You shrug. You're not a confirmed. The least fan of Wes Anderson has ever been.
No,
he hates Wes Anderson.
That's not. We'll get into that. Just finish your question.
Why do all these actors who are pretty successful kind of latch onto his movies, which, I mean, are successful in a certain crowd and in the way that he wants them to be successful, but as far as like big commercial box office sellers, they're not going to make people, millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, just hearing like the voice actors talk and the lines they were given and like the way the movie was, I can be like, I can see why people like being in his movies, because there's a lot of fun. Like, I was just pulling it up. It's Duke, who Jeff Goldblum plays.
Yeah.
Like, he was always like, "Oh, you guys heard the rumor," and I thought the second he said that, I was like, "I bet you that was nowhere in the script." Mm-hmm. Jeff Goldblum just said it, and he's like, That's gold. That's going in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Every time something happens, you're going to be like, you guys heard the rumor, right? Like about something they just learned about. And he's going to know some random piece of... And it's so brilliant because it lets him just, in the most ridiculous way, introduce new information that there's no way they could possibly know.
Yeah.
Just because Duke heard the rumor. Because he just likes gossip. That's how they address it. They're like, where do you hear all these rumors? He's like, I don't know, dogs talk and I listen. I just love gossip. And I'm like, it's so perfect and it just fit. Like, I was waiting for his character to say something insane from the first second he started talking, and he came through so perfectly.
Yeah, Wes Anderson, even at his most serious, he has so many of these funny moments in his movies that I appreciate when a director, he has this amazing balance of a movie that's serious, but doesn't take itself too seriously. I think that sets him apart from... You look at some of the other films that have won Best Picture and been nominated, some of them are so heavy-handed throughout a lot of it. And I really feel like none of his movies that I've seen have been that heavy-handed. They have a certain... I mean, they're genuine, they can be funny, but also they can play on your emotions. And that's one thing I liked about this movie as well, that there are so many funny moments, and I feel like it's something a kid could sit down and watch, because it's beautiful, it's animated, it's funny at times, but also there were these handful of moments with like real human emotion, which now that I'm thinking about it is even more impressive because it was clay. They made this clay, and the way they shot it, it really made you think. And there were so many moments of like close-ups of people gritting their teeth and having these really beautiful facial expressions that I thought brought a lot of emotion to the movie.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I definitely felt through the movie that the dogs were more expressive than the humans. The humans seemed to have much less... They were able to show emotion, but it was much simpler, and the dogs were very subtle. Like, they made them almost more human than the humans. And I was like, that's very interesting. And that took a lot... I'm sure that took so much work, and I was impressed by it. But, I mean, the dogs are the stars of the movie, really. So that's kind of what you'd want.
Yeah, I also... I have a question for you.
Right, go. Hit me with it.
I thought this movie really played to like the dog lover thing. Do you think someone that wasn't a dog person would enjoy it as much? Do you think part of the film would be lost on them? Because I grew up with dogs. I've always had dogs around. My roommate has a dog. And so I feel like there were a lot of jokes that I really enjoyed as someone who likes dogs, but what do you think?
I think they would still really enjoy the movie. I'm trying to think of what they wouldn't find funny or wouldn't get because they didn't like dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of the humor of the dogs talking, like, none of it's really based on dogs. It's all just kind of what normal people talking, if they said that would be really funny.
Yeah, well, they did so many play on words where it's like, oh, this is something a person would say, but they swapped it out for dog lingo.
Yeah.
And there's like, for example, there's the one line at the end, which I feel like it was such an obvious thing for them to do, but it's such a heavy moment where he's like, oh, you son of a bitch. But because they're all dogs, it's like, well, yeah, he is, because he's a dog.
Yeah. Or when, was it Chief is like, you're gonna, to the owl, he's like, you're gonna see a bitch.
You're gonna see a bitch named Nutmeg.
And it's like,
you're so like, oh, he's not saying it in a derogatory way. She's a female dog. And so
now I have to decide whether or not to bleep it out, because I say that we don't curse, but I mean, it's not.
Did you say that? When did we decide that? I mean, I don't usually curse. So
I mean, are you gonna be cursing all the time? Confirmed, Cody. Potty mouth.
Potty mouth.
Cody,
okay.
Confirmed potty mouth.
Yeah, but that was something I thought about. But I don't know, because like I said, I grew up with dogs, and I feel like there were a lot of moments that I just kind of instantly got because I was a dog person. And they talk about, I don't know, when he gets the dogs to sit and they have those like master moments of him and the dogs and him like getting Chief to fetch and things like that. I just feel like there were some of those moments that, I don't know, I'm just curious. Are you a dog person? Are you a cat person?
I mean, I like both. I mean, I have a dog, but
How come you didn't show me your dog when I was over?
I mean,
or is that the one that's with your brother?
It's at my brother. It's at his farm.
All right, well.
So, instead of living in the suburbs, it lives out on a farm. So,
Well, it's nice.
Yeah, he likes that a lot more.
Yeah.
But I don't know I think they would still find it funny. I don't know if any of it would be lost on them unless you've lived in a bunker your entire life and have never seen a dog before. I don't think you wouldn't get any of the jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of the animals, though.
What about him?
Going back to Mayor Kobayashi. Kobayashi dynasty, famously cat lovers.
Right.
Mayor Kobayashi...
Now, just to clarify for everyone, that means people that enjoy the company of cats. They have cats as pets. We're not talking about interspecies relationships. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about people that like cats as pets.
I mean, I was never talking about that at all. It didn't even cross my mind. But now you've brought it up, and now we've got a furry audience.
All right, let's address it.
That's fine.
Pro or con, right now. Take a stance.
Pro or con furry? I'm pro them listening to our podcast.
And?
Con practicing furry stuff.
All right, you heard it. Tyler Bergstrom. Furry hater.
I'm just not going to do any furry stuff with you. You want to listen to the podcast, I'm fine with that.
All right.
More listeners,
Furries,
the better.
Furries are welcome. Please don't leave.
Not scalies, though. Not about the scalies. No scalies, though. Sorry about that, but...
All right, I apologize. I derailed you.
You did.
From something.
He's in the... I'm powering through it. Kobayashi is in the interview right after Atari is, quote, captured by the dogs / rescued in reality by the dogs.
Right.
And he has the cat on his lap, and he's holding this tiny little adorable cat, showing that he is from the cat family.
Yeah.
Because he always has cats with him.
Right.
So here's the cat. They're interviewing him. He makes his statement. All the lights go down, and he chucks the cat on the floor very violently, and there is a wow sound. And he rips off his things and storms off, and the cat storms the other way. And I'm like, I don't think this guy likes cats.
I didn't even catch that.
Because he just stands up, he's like, bow, and it's just gone. The cat's like on the floor.
Really?
Cat lands on his feet, though.
You know what's funny is the thing I noticed about that shot, I didn't notice him throwing the cat. I just noticed how squinty one of the cat's eyes. One eye was normal, the other eye was all squinty. And it made me laugh.
I mean, that's a cat thing. There's beady-eyed little pricks. They plot your murder in your sleep, in case you didn't know that.
That makes sense.
I like cats, but that's because my cat acted like a dog, now that I think about it. That's why I liked my cat. He barked. He did. He did it. He barked, and he was very fat, and he was a cute cat. Anyway. But this guy just tossed the cat on the ground, and I was very upset by it, but also I thought it was hilarious at the same time, the way that it was shot, because you could tell he was upset, and he stormed off. But, and then later, during the fight scene, when, with him and Major Domo, and all the lights came back on, and he just has a ton of cats around him for no reason.
Yeah.
And they scatter, and I'm like, what? Cats just keep appearing around this guy, and I don't know if he likes them or not. Does he have them in his suit? Where do they come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the only... Around him is the only time you see cats.
That's a good point, yeah. It's like a theme for him.
Do the Japanese not like the cats?
I thought they did like cats. But I also think, from what I know about Japan, which is almost exclusively from Hayao Miyazaki and eating sushi, I feel like they like really small dogs. Because you tend to be in bigger cities. I tend to think of them having cats or small dogs.
Yeah. Well, the thought came to my mind as you were talking. Cats. Cat cafes, very popular in
Japan. Cat cafes, yeah.
Confirm they do like cats. Where are the dog cafes? They probably exist. I just said that. Now I said it, and then I was like, there's definitely a dog cafe.
If anyone here listening... Oh, sorry. Is that a cough or a point? I don't know. Are you going to...
No.
You going to draw me in for another cough? I'm just saying, if you know...
This is awkward.
If you know about dog cafes, cat cafes, you've been in Japan, you're from Japan, tweet at us, at Opinion Havers.
At Opinion Havers. Cody is monitoring it 24/7.
24/7. I'm still waiting
for the first tweet.
Something interesting. I know very little about the Twitter.
The Twitter?
So I guess I should do things to draw people's attention.
You gotta get
Stunts,
naked.
bomb threats, Get naked?
You gotta get naked.
I went to bomb threat, you went to nudity. I find that interesting.
One of us is on a list now.
That's true.
Or we're on two separate lists.
Two separate lists. Very different lists. Both illegal.
Both very illegal. Both very, very illegal. But, yeah, I don't know about the dogs in Japan. I thought they did actually have a thing where there was a lot of dogs in Japan. I thought that was a real thing.
Yeah. I can't remember. I do know...
I'm going to look it up while you say your point. I'm going to look up dogs in Japan.
I was just going to say I watched a documentary about raccoons. And there was an anime, I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s, about a kid who raises a pet raccoon. Raccoons are not indigenous to Japan. So everyone loved the anime and they love animals. So they started importing raccoons into Japan. Fun fact about raccoons, they are very good pets for the first year. After about a year, they turn wild and they're really hard to domesticate. So everyone had to release their raccoons, and now Japan has a terrible feral raccoon problem.
What? Now, I did know about the raccoons being pets in other parts of the world for rich people.
Sure.
In Russia, very rich people have them, but I think it's because they managed to only you can only buy the ones that remain domesticated.
Yeah.
And that's why they're super
expensive.
Super expensive, but Japan...
Yeah, there's... The thing I was going to say, the worst part about it is because they're not indigenous, they have no natural predators in Japan.
Predators?
Oh, they have
I thought you were going to get away with that,
natural predators in Japan, and so they just run rampant. It's a real problem.
Oh, man. That is a problem.
What are you looking at? What's this?
Okay, so here is the official... This is just about pet ownership. Unfortunately, there isn't a specific thing about dogs, but about pet ownership in Japan. There's a Wikipedia page specifically for this. Let me read it to you real quick.
Oh, go for it.
Over the last few decades, pet ownership in Japan has gradually moved from a predominantly utilitarian function to a concept that more fully incorporates pets into the family system. In the majority of classes, pets are now considered to be family members. To many Japanese, pets are as well loved as children and may even serve as a substitute for those who choose to forego child rearing.
Wow.
Now, not specifically about dogs, but here's another thing about the Japanese pet boom. The Japanese pet boom can be traced back to 2003, where it was estimated that the combined number of dogs and cats in Japan have outnumbered the number of children. The estimated number of pets and children under 16 in Japan was 19.2 and 17.9 million, respectively, in 2003, and 23.2 million to 17 million in 2009.
Wow. You know, I remember where I got the small dogs from Japan thing. It's from Portlandia. There's an episode where some Japanese tourists go to a coffee shop, and they have a picture of their dog, and his name's Hichiro. Hichiro. So,
can we go one episode without you becoming massively racist and just pooping all over another nation's culture? I don't think so.
I would say no, and I hope not. I won't change who I am. Not for anyone.
Cody from the deep south here.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Hit me with this question. Hit me across the face with it. Just boom.
What did you learn? What was the lesson of the movie?
It was something about science, I'm sure, because of that scientist dude that we never mentioned.
That's true. There was a scientist
who was murdered by wasabi.
Things did not go well.
The wasabi came into his room and stabbed him to death.
Yeah. Moral of the story? Never eat sushi.
I think it's more never eat wasabi.
Moral of the story? Never eat wasabi.
Very expensive if you get the real stuff.
Ooh.
Only grows in specific rivers in Japan. Incredibly hard to collect. And it has to be shaved seconds before you eat it. Thus, it is incredibly expensive.
Your moments.
Now you know.
Now I know. I mean, I already knew.
Did you?
Yeah, but only because you told me. Not just now, but before. Can I take a stab at... I don't know. Lesson... Dogs are good. Cats are fine too. I think it might go back something to like the loyalty. And like you should never abandon someone who's been a friend to you, even in a hard time, even if things aren't going your way. Because the dogs are loved by many people in Japan, but because their size has grown and because of the diseases that they're contracting, they turn their backs on them.
Yeah.
But a lot, like, I think the whole point of the student revolution and what Atari is getting at is, like, you know, what do they say? What happened to man's best friend?
Yeah, I think that was the scientist guy that actually said that. You know, he made the point that the dogs have stood by them and protected them for centuries, and now they need our help, and we're turning our back on them.
It's been like a few months, and we've just turned our backs on them.
You know, it comes to my mind is Brexit.
Please do relate this to Brexit.
Well, you know, UK is, you know, the big, strong human, and rest of Europe are all with his, you know, their dogs. You know, loyal.
Uh-huh.
And they just turned their back. So now they're both suffering when they could be stronger together. But now they're suffering by separating each other. And some dude managed to really swindle his way into becoming prime minister, and he was real shady.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Because I think the main issue of
Very
Brexit,
strong opinions about
one of the
Brexit
big issues of
as an
Brexit
American.
is the immigration issue. And after having talked to some people from the UK, because of the EU, there's a lot of free immigration into the UK, which is a main issue of Brexit. How does that relate to Wes Anderson?
Well, I think Wes Anderson probably lives in California, right? And California wants to secede because they think they'll be stronger by themselves. And I think it's the perfect analogy to Brexit.
Every one of the 300,000 residents of California want to succeed. As someone from California.
I thought we already established you're from the Deep South.
Oh, yeah, that too.
The Deep South of California.
Deep South of California. I thought I made that clear.
So, I mean, you know, that's how I think it's something he sees in his own life. As an analogy from, he sees what happens in Europe, what would happen to California. And so that's how it all relates to Wes Anderson. California shouldn't secede.
Very well informed. You know what? I'm going to write back to my family in California.
Tell them don't secede.
I'm going to tell them that we were wrong. We shouldn't be trying to secede.
We shouldn't be.
We're not Texas. It's not our right.
Texas would probably be fine doing it. But, you know, California would probably not be.
No, we'd be hopeless.
I mean, if there's any pro-secessionist people from California, I really appreciate you listening to the podcast, and you do what you want to do. It's your right as a British citizen to do whatever you want.
Are these British citizens living in California?
Yes.
Okay. So, they're dealing with
so they can vote about Brexit, but they can't.
And they're dealing with Brexit.
They can vote about Brexit, but they can't vote about
And you know what? If you're looking for help,
yeah,
I would recommend Isle of Dogs.
Yes. It's a really good, you know,
really
documentary about Brexit.
Really helps you sort your feelings.
That was quite the
tangent.
I wouldn't even call it. I'm not sure what happened there.
I mean,
I blacked out. Where are we?
We're shooting a podcast.
Shooting?
We're recording. See, with my film background, I've just
you got cameras in this room.
I mean, not that you can see.
I'm completely naked. I don't want you recording this.
I'm okay being in the same room naked. I just don't want there to be evidence. I was gonna ask you something about the movie.
Something actually relevant to the podcast?
I was gonna try really hard, and now I don't know if I can.
What did you think about the lighting and the shots? To bring it back to a film nerd thing.
Lighting? The lighting is so well controlled, and... Well, there were some interesting shots. They had some backlit shots that were really interesting. There's the one where it's the dogs talking about if they should help Atari or not. There's all the bottles. So the bottles are all piled up in the back. They're very colorful, and then the dogs are backlit, so it's just the shadow of the dog speaking, which I thought was a really interesting choice. It was an interesting shot. But they did a few effects like that were actually really cool that you don't always see people take advantage of when they're doing stop motion projects. But he was I thought in a few shots he was very ambitious with the lighting.
I would agree. I actually really liked it. I kind of I brought it up. You'd think jokingly, but actually, because I did notice it was seemed to be very meticulously done.
Yeah.
And there were parts where it's like just the eyes of someone was lit up, or just like a small circle in their face to really show the emotion and like the little motions of their face in the moment.
I can't remember the shot, but there was one. Oh man, I'm so bummed because when it happened, I was like, "Oh, I gotta talk about this." And I can't remember the exact moment. But there's one where the whole shot is lit up, but then the lights close in, like in a circle, and it just frames the very center. And I can't remember what moment it was, but I thought it gave really good emphasis.
Wasn't it during one of Mayor Kobayashi's scenes? It seems like they did that a lot where they focused.
There was one in his.
All the
there were a couple in his. There was one other one I can't recall. I don't know if it was with the scientist's lab assistant, maybe? I'm not sure.
I thought it was talking about the lighting. Well, you try to remember that. The moment where Mayor Kobayashi was kind of struggling with that, almost like his inner demons of wanting to be corrupt and this heritage of hating the dogs. And his eyes were glowing, and then when he was like, "No, I shouldn't do this," his eyes stopped glowing, and then he like had a moment of rage, and he blew out the smoke, and his eyes started glowing. And it's almost like a very simple but a very well done way of showing that inner struggle that he was going through.
Yeah.
It seems like he kind of. They tried to frame it like he didn't care about Atari, but then you see at the end like he really did. He took him in. He like. Meant it. He didn't just do it for publicity stuff.
He didn't have to. He was, it was like a distant relation.
A distant uncle.
Distant uncle. Yeah.
I don't know how distant you can be and still be someone's uncle.
I mean, I don't know how it works in Japan.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how the relations work in Japan. It may be distant uncle means something different than it does in the U.S. Which would, I guess, mean your uncle that you never met.
Sure.
If they were your distant uncle.
Yeah.
But one thing I thought was funny that I wanted to address real quick was I heard several podcasts and movie reviewers talking about when they went to go see like early screenings of this, which obviously we didn't get to go see because no one listens to our podcast yet. But they were talking about how they like, I find it so racist. This is me making fun of them. This is my making fun of their voice. Just so you know, this is not my opinions. I find it so racist that everyone's white. Like, all the dogs are white actors. And all the Asian... Like, why couldn't they be Asian speaking Japanese? And I wanted to be like, scream at the screen and be like, that's the joke! Is that they're all Americans and the Japanese people are actually Japanese people.
Yeah.
But the dogs, it's like... It even says at the beginning of the film... All of the characters speak their original tongues, and it's just translated when there's a translator present.
Yeah.
For, like, the news, or the American that speaks Japanese is present.
Right.
But the dog's barks, they're not American, they're not Japanese, they're dogs, have been translated into English, and that's the joke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the... How can someone not get that? But I heard a surprising number of people that just didn't seem to understand that was a thing in the movie.
Well, the thing, too, is you talk about breaking barriers, and yeah, I mean, you have every white actor ever, because I don't know a lot about Wes Anderson, but I do know, based on his name, that he's white. But they got to feature a young Japanese kid as the main character in the story. As, like, one of the main protagonists, as Atari, and I thought that was really cool, and you got to hear a lot of Japanese, and they did a lot of, like, what would you call, Spanish and English is Spanglish. Japanese and English would be Janglish. They had some really funny Janglish jokes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought it was really cool the way that they did it. And there were some scenes where you only got one or two words of Janglish and the rest was all Japanese.
Yeah.
And you just had to ascertain based on context clues what was going on in the scene. And that's good storytelling. That's really good filmmaking when you can portray that all with stop motion. That's awesome.
Yeah, it did make me want to watch the movie with someone who spoke Japanese, because I'd be interested to find out, because a lot of times in movies and TV shows and stuff, when they do that and there's no subtitles and nothing, someone just randomly breaks into another language, they just have them saying nonsense. Like a bunch of nonsense words that don't mean anything, there's nothing there. And I'd be interested to know if they just spoke nonsense or if they actually were talking about stuff relevant in the scene.
Yeah.
And what they were talking about.
That'd be interesting.
Because there's entire conversations people have that you're like, I kind of get what they're talking about, but I would like to know specifically what they're saying and what they're like specifically what they're talking about. But they did do a good job of just based on context, so that you never felt like you got lost during those long stretches where it was all in Japanese.
Yeah. What makes you think of, for example, like if you ever played Resident Evil 4, it takes place in Spain. Everything that the zombies say in Spanish is real Spanish. And they're saying real things that would apply to the situation. So it was interesting. I got, in college, I got a roommate who had never played it, and so I lent him a copy of it so he could play through it. And it was interesting, because the first time I played it, I didn't learn Spanish, and I learned Spanish afterwards. So it was interesting watching someone play the game and be like, oh, listen to all these things people are saying that actually like enhance the story. So I wonder what it would be like.
Cody, could you give us just a quick demonstration of your Spanish skills to prove that you speak Spanish?
No, I will not do that.
Por favor, señor. I tried to say por favor, but it came por favor, but it
you
came
just
out.
Couldn't butcher the accent.
I couldn't butcher it enough. I did butcher it still, but not enough.
Not enough. Oh, I will not do that. But thank you so much for asking.
Terrible person.
I speak to you in Spanish all the time. Did you notice that tonight? I was saying stuff left and right in Spanish. I don't know why.
I mean, you'd say like one word that anybody knows.
No, wait. I say stuff all the time, and you just never ask me what it means.
Because I don't think you know how to speak Spanish.
Well, I mean, you could ask me when I say stuff. It's fine.
But you could make up anything.
That's true, but I'm not.
It's like I could be speaking to just anybody and say a random, made up word and be like, oh, well, that's Russian,
Right. Well, I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know.
I do want to go back to something you talked about earlier. And you claimed that I was the world's biggest Wes Anderson fan. I made a shrug, and then we were going to talk about it, but we were talking
I believe I said you were a big Wes Anderson fan. You shrugged, and then I said you were the least Wes Anderson fan, meaning you hate him more than anybody else in the world.
Oh, okay.
And have never seen a single one of his films. You actively buy tickets to his films so other people can't see them.
Can I come clean on the record?
Yes, if you could direct all your statements towards the microphone.
We're recording now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all on the record.
This is all on the record.
All right. I like Wes Anderson, and I didn't always like Wes Anderson. I was kind of confused by the way he framed his movies. Sometime I started with Fantastic Mr. Fox, and I hadn't seen. I'm trying to think. I saw Moonrise Kingdom. I don't think I saw it at the right time in my life. And then, I'm trying to think, after that, a little while later, I saw Rushmore. Anyway, after that, I saw Grand Budapest, and I've seen this, and I've seen A Life Aquatic. Anyway, point is, the more I learn about movies, and the more I see his movies, the more I appreciate them. So I think I started out being really unsure, but I was like, but I like Fantastic Mr. Fox. But now I'm at a point where I really see his value as a filmmaker, and now that I kind of understand his style, I think he has a lot of very good movies. And I mean, as someone who's a fan of film, there's so much that he does well, and he's so unique that his movies are really fun to watch in that way. It's like it's one of those things where you see a Wes Anderson film and you know right off the bat that it's his. He did like a holiday spot for, I forget who, I don't know if it was Target or some, it was like a 5 or 10 minute short. And this is a couple Christmases ago. It's like a holiday special thing. And someone just had it on, and I was like, wow, this looks just like a Wes Anderson thing. And then it totally was. And you can just tell from the way he puts everything together. But from all those regards, there's so much that he does well. I am a fan of his. I do like him a lot. But it kind of took me a while, I think, to appreciate what he does.
So I got 2 things out of what you just said.
Yeah.
You're a fake poser boy.
Yes.
That says you like movies when really you don't.
Obviously.
Like any movie ever made. And Wes Anderson made a short for Target, which makes him a sellout.
You would do really well on the internet.
Would I?
Have you ever been on like YouTube comment boards or on Reddit?
Never once in my life.
Really? You should. I feel like you would do well there.
I don't. They all seem like they're such nice, kind people that only ever have very positive and uplifting things to say about each other.
I mean,
and I think I'm too mean.
Too mean to fit in with the.
Too mean to fit in with them.
Yeah.
I don't think they could handle me.
I'd just be interested to see what happens. That's all. Okay, so, and we've talked about a lot. Is there anything else? I mean, what else stuck out to you in the movie? Is there anything else we didn't really talk about?
I mean, there's lots of parts of the movie we didn't talk about, but I think as far as like the movie itself, the breakdown of whether or not we liked it and things we noticed about the movie.
Let me show you one of my favorite gags.
Share it to me.
Favorite gag was probably Oracle. this little dog with the big buggy blue eyes. And it is so funny to me. It was such a good gag because, movies like The Matrix, and they have this Oracle, this like cryptic wise person. And so in the Dog Kingdom, it's this dog that like the very first introduction, it's like Oracle's like, it might snow tonight. And I was like, oh, really? Yes. And then I was like, no, he just watches the TV. It's this little dog that looks at the TV and then like relays some of the information. I thought that was so funny. And like that moment, I think his last big gag was when he does like the take where he looks right at the camera and just like cocks his head. I don't know. I just really liked Oracle. He was probably one of my favorite jokes in the movie.
Oracle was definitely funny. Just like them being like, what do you say, Oracle? And then just watches TV.
He just looks at the TV.
That's all he does. Now, I think my favorite... let me double check the name of the character real quick. The name of the dog. If I could just...
I didn't even know that Oracle was played by Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, you kept saying he. It's definitely a she.
I apologize to all... Anyway, what were you saying?
My favorite was Rex, the voting.
Oh, the voting gag? Yeah, that was a good joke.
Just all in favor. And in the spirit of him, I would like to say all in favor of ending the podcast. Say aye.
No.
Aye.
No. Okay, so just in terms of wrap up, I would say, I would give my full recommendation. Check this movie out. It's a great blend of something that's indie, sort of, it's sort of got that flavor of Wes Anderson, but at the same time, like Tyler has said, it's just funny. There's so many good moments. It's a well put together film. It's long for an animated film, but it's less than 2 hours. It's not overbearing. I think a lot of people would enjoy it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I would definitely say, like I said, of the two of us, I'm more the common man, general audience member going to movies in my tastes.
The proletariat.
That's... I don't want to get real racist up in here, Cody, with your... But,
You think even a common man would enjoy it?
Yeah, I think someone who just kind of likes to go see funny, like, comedy movies would like this.
Yeah.
Because I think, at its core, if you weren't a huge film buff, it's just a funny movie. You'll get some laughs. I definitely got some pretty good belly laughs out of it.
Yeah. Okay, where can people find us?
They can check out our YouTube channel, Opinion Havers, on YouTube. They can tweet at you. I'm trying to get the podcast on iTunes, coming soon. Pending. Soon. And then on podcasts.com, you can download the podcast and listen to it there. Opinion Havers.
Opinion Havers. Yep, so tweet at me on Twitter, at Opinion Havers. And until then, watch movies, listen to podcasts.
Have your own opinions.